Erica, this is a fun time to ask you about your habits and especially the important ones because you're in the middle, would you say, as the tour of the book launch, which happens in what, a week or so, just
Yes,
about there.
that's right.
So this is a great time because you're being pressured down. And what are the ones that even with the big book launch are not going to go by the wayside?
The top habits that matter most to me and that I live by religiously are: number one, sleeping early. I have two kids, both under 3 years old. One goes to bed at 7, one goes to bed at 7:30. And I don't have a huge house. I live in Manhattan. I have found that sleeping early and waking up early, whether that's sleeping at 8 or 8:30 if I can, and maybe I seem like an old geezer, but for me, it has been amazing versus, what I used to do even a year ago, which was, 10, 11 o'clock, sometimes, binge watching Netflix until midnight has transformed my life. It's given me a sense of energy. I can wake up at 5:30 naturally, and I start the day with intention. The second habit is quick moment of silence and breath when I start the day to just realign, to remind myself that I'm in my body. And as a mom of two young kids and fully working and in the midst of a book launch, I don't have a lot of time. And sometimes I have a crying child up at 5:30 with me. And so, even if it's just a simple, 2 minutes of breath, um, or I listen to the Calm app for 10 minutes if I'm lucky
Right.
to get 10 minutes, but it's not my circumstance to get even that much or more than that in a regular day. Third habit is a breakfast of 3 boiled eggs. For some reason, I found that just having that healthy protein in the morning builds my sense of energy. And it's completely different if I even have cereal or I have, a bagel. I don't have the same energy, but 3 boiled egg whites has been fantastic for me. And then the fourth habit is intentional. I'm a busy working professional, and the intentional time of at least 1 hour with my children every day towards the end of the day, whether it's giving my daughter a bath, reading my son a book. In some ways it's for them, but it's really for me.
Yeah.
And we spend so much of our day at work, we don't have time for play, and I find so much joy in what they give me, which is an hour of true play, to reimagine, to be creative, and to truly connect with them. And again, I think it's all about me. It's not, it is about them, but I'm lucky to be on the journey with them. So those are the 4 habits that really shape my life.
I like it. I want to dig into them a little bit. So especially not only going to sleep early, but that even as close to a year ago, you said you were not doing that. I want to know about that time. Was there something you were exposed to, something somebody said, something you felt specifically that you said, okay, I don't want that. I more than binge watching on Netflix. So let's just say entertainment, relaxation, not a bad thing, but more than that, I want X. What happened?
I just hit a massive burnout period. I was
Okay.
exhausted. I would wake up angry. I would wake up frustrated. I found myself just hitting the cliff, and I needed a breakthrough. And I was lucky to take a walk around that time with a good friend named Aisha Bursell. Aisha Bursell is the author of a book called Design the Life You Love. And her big credo, mission is to really encourage us to think about, who do we admire? Who are our heroes? And how do we just be more like them instead of trying to, achieve whatever external success factors are out there or what our parents wanted.
Yeah.
And, when I really took a step back, I thought about, how I wanted to be someone that woke up excited and energized. And Aisha actually told me that one of the things she did when she had young children, and which her kids are in high school now, she said, I struggled like you with this, Erica, too, as a working professional in a pandemic. We haven't even, added that on top of this in a
Right.
2-bedroom apartment in New York City. But she said to me, I would start getting up really early, and it gave me space for myself. And then I could be present to everyone else. And I think my exhaustion was I didn't create the space for myself. And that's what really led to the shift to sleeping early and realizing that I wasn't missing much late at night and I was getting so much more out of the day.
So that is part of the point, is to be up before the kids.
Yes.
And okay, yeah, I'm grateful that we're hearing that more and more and more and more. And I had to come to it as well. And I struggle with it because I've got older kids who want to do fun things at night, and then the
Oh, you're
younger
the
kids.
other end.
So it's a bit of a tension there, but yeah, that time in the morning is so powerful. But that's great to hear. And actually, it was Design the Life You Love by who again? Say that name
Aisha
again.
Bursell,
Spell it for me.
Aysebircel.
Okay. I love the title of that, and somebody to impart into our lives is the most powerful thing. So 2 moments of silence and breath. You said the Calm app for 10 minutes. So I want to ask you about that because again, meditation is such a common thing that we're hearing, or, people say it in different ways now. Some people try to not use the word meditation, but they want to say, yeah, I take this time and be present or whatnot. Is that something, again, what brought you, have you done that for a long time? Is there something that brought you to saying, hey, that's an exercise I want to take on?
As someone who grew up in Indian culture, my parents came from India in the 70s to the United States. Yoga and, creating moments for meditation and mantras were part of my upbringing. They're what we did at temple. They were, a fad or something new that I tried in my 30s. They were part of my childhood. And I remember definitely times in my 20s where I often let go a lot of that stuff. And
Sure.
I just could see the levels of anxiety in my life. And I would say about 15 years ago, I started a regular, practice around meditation. And of those 15 years, I think over those 15 years, I've had probably about 6 or 7 years of consistent
Wow.
meditation. Because I've lost it in certain periods and then I got it back. And that's, if you lose it, it finds you again because you realize when you need it.
Yeah.
And what I also learned for me is that meditation is a space for me to reflect in the way that I want to reflect in that moment, which means, I've done everything from the YouTube video meditations, the guided visualizations, the Calm app. Recently, I also did Deepak Chopra's, 21-day, free yoga and meditation, experience. And so I found that it's the experience of just creating space to be centered and to catch my breath and to actually breathe versus how I do it. And that's what can change naturally.
I love hearing that is, you're not, because I was going to ask that. Okay. So specifically, I like to know, so, how do you approach it? Do you have this specific, yeah, I do this, specific, blah, 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 that you're taking the discipline of the time, the benefit of the time, but allowing yourself to do it in different ways. I like that because as my own bias, I like that too, to let there be a season of that. And then sometimes I start feeling imprisoned to it, and to be
Right.
free to do something like it's exercise. I'm
It's
going to
exactly
exercise.
like exercise, but sometimes you don't want to do weight training anymore. You want to
Yes,
do the Peloton or you want to do a dance
exactly.
class or whatever it is.
Yeah. Well, let me ask that. So on that, so do you do primarily an exercise regime? What are you doing right now there? Or
Yeah.
even historically, tell me about that one.
Yeah, so I think this is an interesting question because in the last 3 years, I've birthed 2 children. My children are 14 months apart. So I
Oh,
didn't have
wow.
a normal routine or an
Yeah.
easy, consistent, perfect habit because life happens. We all have circumstances, whether that's hurting our foot or being pregnant and not being able to do lots of things or whatever it may be. And so for me, actually, after I had my son, uh, about, I would say, uh, right around when the pandemic hit, about, a year ago, a little more than a year ago now, I started a very regular routine. Again, I thought, I was finally done with having kids and I'd finally go back to workout classes and be able to, have people push me. And then the quarantine hit and I had no
All right.
option after 3 years of being limited in my workouts already. And so I just said, what is in my power now? And because I know how much moving my body helps me. And I downloaded with my husband those Beachbody tapes of Shanti, those insanity tapes.
I've done them.
And
Yeah.
together, starting last March. By the way, in March 2020, after I had my son, I had him in February 2020, I was 185 pounds. After 2 children in 2 years, basically. And doing those insanity workouts 6 days a week with my husband, 30 minutes a day, I lost 50 pounds.
Whoa.
6 months.
Wow.
And
Wow.
now I do continue to do them religiously. I do mix it up now, similar to like what we talked about, Kevin, but actually in many ways, the quarantine gave me a space to just stop looking elsewhere and start looking within and looking at what's in my power simply on my phone. And if we have that wherewithal within, we can change our habits. We can achieve our goals, whether it's fitness, mentally, spiritually, emotionally, or physically.
I love it. And I do have to say I can relate a little bit. Now I didn't birth the children, but we've got a bunch and we have 2 different sets, I'll say, that are both literally almost to the day, 15 months apart. And so I understand 2 in diapers, and it's kind of like twins, but not even. Sometimes I thought twins might've been easier because at least they're in the same diaper, now you got
I
2.
agree. We didn't get lucky. We had Irish twins and it was more work, but we love them.
Yeah. Yeah, that's fun. Okay. So you talked about breakfast, 3 boiled egg whites. Of course, there are so many. I have another show, the True Life podcast, where we talk about health and wellness, of course, diet. There's 101 different methodologies that everybody does. Do you have, aside from that, any specific diet that you adhere to?
Well, I think that last year in particular, the year that I lost 50 pounds in 6 months, which I've never done before.
So impressive, by the way. That's
and
amazing.
during the pandemic, for me, it wasn't the quarantine, it was the loss of,
That's awesome.
of weight. And I think actually being at home helped me with that. Maybe I had no time to eat. But when it comes to, health and wellness and food, one of the things that I did was the paleo, routine of really amping up my protein intake. And I've seen such powerful results of that. I think that in a weight loss period, it was very, very rigid and following those rules. Now, I think I believe in creating space to enjoy food, and whether that's, if I want to eat some pasta or eat a steak versus, eating a gluten-free, salad or sandwich. I think what I have followed and what has worked is to have some regular rhythms, like the boiled eggs that set me for the day. And then by dinner, to give some space for fun and creativity, whether I want to have something just delicious and not healthy or something very healthy. And I think that not being so rigid now, but having one meal of regular structure has been most helpful.
I want to jump back to something that I forgot about too, is you talked about kind of that burnout about, a year ago or so too. If I take that back, then you've got these little kids. And as I'm holding your book that's about to launch, you must have been right in the midst of this. Did you question your timing a little bit on that? And I think, is this really the time I want to do this?
I think it was crazy and it was perfect.
Okay.
It was both.
Okay.
I feel so blessed to have 2 healthy children. And for me, it wasn't easy to get pregnant instantly and have children. And I'm a little on the older side. My mother would call it a geriatric pregnancy. Wow. But I think in many ways, I just feel so grateful that I've been able to, and many people struggle with this and have a lot of grace. I feel grateful to have kids, and I guess they chose me in their timing. And I've been working on my new book, Digital Body Language, for 4 years. And I actually thought it was going to come out in 2020. And I remember really being upset. I couldn't get it done in 2019, by the mid of 2019. I didn't have my creative flow. I was having small children at home. But in some ways, having the pandemic as well, it allowed for this creative flow to truly finish. And I've learned that the timing is right and the universe guides the timing. And in some ways there have been crazy moments, but creativity flows in the way that it flows. And I can only honor that.
Thank you. Last one then I want to hit on, and this is an area that I've become more and more curious about all the time, is kind of the aspect of just things that you do for you, just for, I mean, not all these are for you, but the things that you do that are just for Erica. This may, put it into the label or category of personal care, self-care, or play or fun. I mean, it could be hobbies, and whatever it may be, the things that you do that light you up.
I love to dance.
There's perfect.
I love to put on some Beyonce and dance around my 5x7 office before a virtual keynote speech. I love to sing children's songs with my kids and move around the room. And, I think that moving my body brings me an element of joy. And I think also, Kevin, I was a shy and introverted girl growing up, and I wasn't very vocal, but one of the things I loved was dancing and expressing
Mm.
myself. So I think that's something that brings me a lot of joy, and it is a regular practice, not always perfect and disciplined, but I keep consistently going back to it throughout my life. The other thing, I think this is just a guilty pleasure, is massages. I'll be
Mm.
honest, I'm a big fan of them, especially in a very stressful 2 years, with all my body changes with work. And I have found even just a discipline of a massage every 2 weeks. It's not, again, leisure. For me, it was critical. And I
Yeah.
think there's no shying away from that. I think we need spaces to relax, and especially in quarantine, that's harder for than ever. And luckily, I had someone I knew that I was able to meet and go to her space when things started to open up in New York.
That right there, though, even you talking about, yeah, it's kind of a guilty pleasure. That's why I ask it, because I'm saying that I wanted people to hear that. So those 2 massages a week are what Erica does
A massage every 2 weeks,
every
but
2 weeks.
yes.
That's what Erica does. That's an investment that you make in yourself, that it has helped you get to right here on this show with this book and everywhere else you're going to be. That's
There is
so
one more,
important.
Kevin. And
Please.
it was, I would take myself out to breakfast every Thursday to just dream and think, and I would bring my journal. And I couldn't do that for a lot of the pandemic when, dining was
Yeah.
closed, but I started doing it again. And I'll tell you, it has been amazing.
So it's
Taking
just kind of,
myself
is
out
that just kind of a
by myself.
creative, kind of an inspired thing? Go to a nice place. Okay. Okay. Love it. Love it. Thank you. Thank you for the behind the scenes. That was fun stuff to get into, and gave me some thoughts as well. So thank you for sharing some behind the scenes and giving yourself to the show again.
Thank you for having me, Kevin, and for the
Absolutely.
space you create for all of us.